Intro. Zero Dark 30 is a good way to show the war on terror in a way that's kind of similar to propaganda. This is done in various ways throughout the film, as it justifies a lot of things done during the war on terror. It was released in 2013 and is based off of the mission to kill Osama bin Laden after 9/11 was connected to Al Qaeda. But since it is based off of a true story, we should probably first go over the story of the movie, which includes parts of the war on terror that are covered in the movie. So the story is kind of important in that way. We open the story to Maya, who is a character who works for the CIA. She has one thing that she has to do, and that's find bin Laden. She's stationed in the embassy, which is in Islamabad, which is in Pakistan. She and another CIA officer named Fuller work at a black site, which is essentially just like not having due process. You don't have to have a crime to be there, so people are just there, just because. Then there's Amar, someone who is related to the September 11th hijackings, but by using, quote, enhanced interrogation tactics, they get some information out of him, but also a name, Abu Ahmed. He's somewhere, but they also can get the name Abu Faraj connected to him. This cuts to 2005, where Faraj says he doesn't know about Abu Ahmed. Skip forward a few years to 2009, and a doctor from Jordan says he'll be a spy for $25 million. Bank is bank, and so Maya and Jessica go over to meet him in a base in Afghanistan. But wait, false, suicide vest, and he blows up the area. This kills Jessica and hurts a bunch of other people on the base. Then Thomas, who is another CIA person, says that Ahmed was said to be buried in 2001. But using the knowledge from the Moroccan government, Maya learns that Ahmed may be a man named Ibrahim Said. So now that Ahmed isn't dead, and assuming it was his brother Habib, answers can be claimed now, and the trail continues. Maya goes to Fuller to get some answers. Since he's upgraded in the CIA, Maya asks him to get information on Saeed's family. He gets a phone number for his mother from a Kuwaiti prince by giving him a Lamborghini sports car. That's how you do that. That's business. But now, Maya's on the right track again. She gets Saeed's phone number through his mother's calls with him, and bing, bang, bam, they find him. Though, it shows Saeed's weak spycraft because they find the iconic compound by following literally just his vehicle. It's in Abbottabad, Pakistan. I probably butchered that. Maya's then attacked by gunmen. So she goes back to Washington, D.C. because her cover may have been lost and revealed. Then the CIA puts surveillance on the compound, and the NSA and the CIA make a plan to attack it. Then they brief Obama about the mission. The CIA head person says there's like a 60 to 80% chance that bin Laden is in the compound. Maya then to Aura Farm and just do all that cool stuff, says 100% he's there. Okay, 95% because that freaks you guys out, but 100%. And that convinces them. That literally convinces them somehow. But whatever. Then fast forward to May 2nd, 2011, where they do the mission to raid the compound. A bunch of people from a bunch of different teams raid the compound, and they kill like a bunch of people. But they also killed the last person they needed to, Osama bin Laden, and he gets shot by one of the people in the SEAL Team 6. So, at the base in Jalalabad, Afghanistan, Maya sees the body, confirms that it's bin Laden, and then she boards a transport plane and leaves, while crying. Roll the credits, and that's the entire movie. In the movie, there were many things that make the movie a little weird to watch. If you know, like, the broader context of the War on Terror, this is because of the way that they went about getting information from suspected terrorists. They called it enhanced interrogation tactics that they used when trying to get information out of people. Now, what is the information that was actually gotten? A lot of fake information just said to stop the torture. That's what it is. Just pure torture. You can see all the politicians who scream and yell, "Waterboard all of them. I will continue waterboarding," or whatever they yell. And they just say that for some reason. Be it to get some claps out of the audience and to get them hyped, but it doesn't work. If it worked, then maybe it wouldn't be illegal. Maybe torture wouldn't be illegal if it worked. It's crazy. In the Geneva Conventions, torture's outlawed, as we all know. A lot of countries have signed on to that, including the US. Torture is when you hurt or make anyone, suffer on purpose to get information out of them. Which, let's just even think about all of the ways these enhanced interrogation tactics work. Things like waterboarding, or just pure torture, in that definition. Yet, they aren't classified as it for some reason. This is because what the rest of the world sees as torture isn't really torture for the US, in part because we just don't really want to. We don't want to see it like that. If you don't say it's torture, but just rename it, people will have to question what it is, and you can get some information out of people somehow. Now, knowing that in the Geneva Conventions, this would be defined as torture, we should see what it would be like to do. So let's paint a picture, a pretty little picture. You wake up, your hands and feet are tied around a wooden chair in a room with no windows. You hear footsteps coming from outside the room, and then, bam, the door in front of you opens, slamming open, bangs open, and here comes two menacing buff guys walking towards you. They say, in their deep, masculine voices, "So you want to talk now?" They're holding a towel and a jug full of water as they walk towards you. Of course, let's assume you're still confused. You're waking up. You're confused, and so you stay silent. They come over to you and knock over your chair, leaning you back, so that you're looking at these blinding lights. These lights take up your whole vision. You're like only able to see white, nothing else. You can't see a thing. Then one of them puts the towel over your face. It's over for you. But then they say, "Last chance. Do you want to talk?" And you say nothing, either out of, let's assume, loyalty to someone or something. So you shake your head, and then they start pouring water over your mouth. You can't breathe, and you're essentially drowning. They ask, "Are you sure?" Now, what are you more likely to do? Tell them the truth and hope they believe you just to get it to stop? Or maybe, just maybe, tell a lie? It sounds like the best option for what a lot of people do when they get tortured. Just tell them what they want to hear, even if it is a lie. They don't have to know if it's a lie or not. That's what you can do, and that's what they did. They lied. A lot of people lied because it worked. It worked in the way that it stopped the torture. So that's one of the criticisms about the movie from senators, like actual senators who were in Congress at the time, that the movie was kind of pro-torture. This is because in the movie, you can see at various points where it tries to paint this picture that they got the information by invisibly saying, like, "Well, it worked this time, so see, it works." It doesn't. It does not work. It's more unreliable to do this because let's take the scene where they find out the name Abu Ahmed, for example. So, at the start, they start the torture method, which is called enhanced interrogations, by the way. And they just squeeze this rascal to say whatever he can. Whatever he can say, even if it's a lie, those are still words. In the scene, it's shown he's not really reliable. The scene shows that when it comes to information revolving around, like, Saudi Arabia, he's not that great at telling the truth. It was said in the movie itself, like it was said in that movie before or during the scene, it is so prevalent that it's not going to work. He's even going to lie to you. That's what people do. That's what people do to escape. You can lie, and I mean you can really lie your way out of like basically anything. And you can especially do this if you're resourceful enough. You can do that, which is really easy to do. And you know, he said a name. He did say Abu Ahmed, and that's it. But if you do a little bit of research, like the free thinking kind of research, you can see that people in the CIA did not get any big meaning of any information from him that was useful at like all, basically. If it was useful, it was like minimal. So, you know, you torture a guy, you get nothing. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes mentality of torture. But the people who worked on the actual trial of hunting down bin Laden also have said that the torture wasn't effective. It's probably because on that trail to get bin Laden, they got lucky and also got a few things already in that trail that helped them get even farther. All the torture probably did is just like give them info they already had, or just some misinformation that maybe threw them off the tracks. That's just how torture works. And that's how people usually respond to getting out of torture. Now, of course, comes the point where this is in importance. This comes with the question of, why would they ever be pro-torture? That's a weird stance to take. But it's to justify all the actions taken during the War on Terror up until that point. And the reason that it doesn't really say that like anything was wrong was how the U.S. went about the War on Terror, since it's not really ready to condemn torture, which, you know, kind of makes you question what their thoughts are in the rest of the movie. And you can never have a war where every action is justified. You can try to, but that's just not how it works. That's not how war works. As Hannah Montana said, nobody's perfect, and that really is the case in the sense of war. Nobody, and I mean nobody, fights a war perfectly, because sometimes the problems take place at home or abroad. Here, those issues are not really brought up at all, like the USA Patriot Act, or this problem with enhanced interrogations. There's a lot of flaws of how the U.S. went about killing bin Laden, and a lot that could have been done better. Like how the torture and black sites, the CIA had really, when you look at it, they kind of weren't ethical. Of course, you could make the argument that these people are terrorists, so they should be tortured. They plan to and actually have hurt people. So an eye for an eye, in a way. If you believe in fairness, that's all you, buddy. But you can't really say that it's something that worked. It's also something you can't really argue the legality of, because it does just go against the Geneva Conventions that have been in place for like a while, a good amount of time. Sometimes it's just about taking accountability for things that were done wrong. And there were some things, especially the enhanced interrogation tactics, that were things that were really wrong to do in any war. But it's also good to know that they don't work in case any other war comes up in the future. Also, it is good to know the actual history of the War on Terror around this time period as well. At least just a quick recap until 2011. This may sound similar to the history mentioned when talking about like American Idiot by Green Day, but it's good to know about the why for the hostility of the area this movie mainly takes place in. So 9/11 happens, and then we find out it is related to Al-Qaeda. So we go to search for them. They're found to be in the Afghanistan country somewhere, so we go there with soldiers. Then, later we went into Iraq in 2003 because of WMDs that were supposedly found there. So we kill Saddam Hussein, but then it's like now what? Now what do we do? We're just kind of here. We liberated them, but actually, false alert, false nuke, no WMDs were actually found there. That's kind of known at this point. Fork found a kitchen statement, because now does our justification gone for that war. So now we don't really have a real reason to be in Iraq. And some of them are starting to hate us because why are these foreign soldiers on our land? So, it seems like a little war is going on. Not on my land, and I need someone to blame that on. Maybe the country who falsely claimed we had WMDs and threatened our sovereignty. So, they scratched their chins, and over time started to hate the U.S., and that kind of started to rise a little bit. Something that was bound to happen, because the justification was just wrong. It was plain wrong. It's simple as that. But fast forward a few liberating trips later, and maybe some or a lot of civilian casualties, we get to a big point. 2011, where we left Iraq, and what formed because of it. A little thing known as ISIS. That's the big thing that formed during this time. So, considering how this caused extremism in some parts of the country, and that's what sold, it really starts this process of dehumanizing people. That's what the true shame is, and that's really just what sometimes even hinting at pro-torture can do to some groups of people. There are people who think that entire groups of people aren't human, and they're just subhuman, and that's because of things like a racist form of confirmation bias, but also because of Western media kind of doing that propaganda thing. It probably didn't do it on purpose, but the way that the Western media covered places like the Middle East and the people who live there just kind of formed the stigma in society, American society at least, that kind of still lingers. Even if maybe it healed a little bit, you could talk to some people, you can sense it, like you can sense that stigma. It's the uncles at family dinners and those types of people who have the really weird takes where that stuff lingers. But it painted this idea of the true, like the Middle East being this place full of havoc and chaos, which isn't really true. That's just what was covered in the news. And that true is like really put in quotes when talking about what the news covered. And that's what really was propagandized, was the whole idea of the war on terror. And a whole idea. Of course, there are a list of things that can be covered that aren't in the movie, like the WMD lies and some other things. But those two things kind of show the idea of like what it like was trying to say the most, and like the idea of it. It was able to show that the most. When it comes to music in the movie, you can gauge what kind of genres movie is. It is that thriller, spy-esque music in the way that the strings are menacing, but also have some plucked arps as well in a few of them. Are some of them bangers? I gotta admit some of them are. Some of them are good songs to save you to your library and maybe listen on one of those days. It's a shame to admit that like a propaganda movie does have good music, but it does. The days where you're driving to wherever you gotta be for your daily life, I don't know. The song called Omar actually makes you feel cool in a way, makes you feel like you're a detective interviewing somebody. It's hard to describe, but just believe me. It's one of the bangers from the soundtrack, so it does the music part. It elevates a scene sometimes, while sometimes it is that generic background music type. Now, when it comes to numbers, the movie really at the time of release wasn't really based on any of like the propaganda and mishandling of messages like it is today, but it made a lot of top 10 lists because of that. Like the time was different basically. Before going to the review scores, it did do semi-well in the box office. Don't really know the marketing budget, but it had to be like probably like, but the actual budget was 40 million to 52.5 million, and it made 132.8 million dollars in the box office worldwide. So it made somewhat of a profit probably, which is good. It has a 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb, which is pretty good, and it has a 9.95 on Metacritic. Somehow, that's really a jump. By a miracle of somehow, somewhere, that's just how it works, I guess. It has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 3.7 out of 10 on Letterboxd, which is basically just the equivalent of the IMDb score when you put it in normal terms. Overall, the movie, if you look away from its flaws and the propaganda, is a good movie. I liked it a lot when I watched it because I only really noticed the propaganda stuff afterwards when thinking about the movie. But the scores I usually give the things are usually based on my highest opinion of the movie. So personally, I would give it like a 9.5 out of 10. But it depends on person to person and what you think of like thrillers and stuff like that. If you want to spread your personal propaganda known as your opinion, you can comment it down below if you want. But that's about it, really. Please like and subscribe. Pretty please.